I'd like to start by telling you about an interview Warren Buffett gave a few years ago. If you don't know who Warren Buffett is, he's the chairman of Berkshire Hathaway Corporation, the fifth richest person and widely considered to be the most successful investor in the world. So during this interview, he was speaking about his golden rules for success and gave the following advice. He said, "You drift in the direction of people you associate with. Studies suggest that you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Therefore, you should choose your business partners very carefully, as they tend to have an impact on your life and success." Translated, Warren Buffett was saying that the best way to be successful is to do what successful people do. So I said earlier that I was a serial entrepreneur. I also majored in entrepreneurship while getting my MBA from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Before I launched my last and most successful entrepreneurial venture, I went back to Penn's campus to solicit advice from my 5 entrepreneurship professors. The one and only question I asked each of them was, what one piece of advice would you give me that, if implemented, would maximize the probability of my venture succeeding? As I reflected on the conversations I had and the books my professors asked me to read about scaling business growth, it occurred to me that I was hearing some consistent themes about what successful entrepreneurs credited for their success. So I deliberately infused these traits into my new business before it was launched to see what would happen. And to my surprise, everything worked. A business I launched with $2,000, I sold 6 years later, and that allowed me to retire a decade ago. So let me share with you the 6 traits that all successful entrepreneurs credit for their success. The first thing all successful entrepreneurs do is take the time to figure out what they're passionate about. Then they build a business around their passion. What they figured out is that when you do what you love what you do. Your love permeates everything you do, and this love for what you do excites everyone around you. This excitement makes it infinitely easier to attract customers, allies, partners, collaborators, and mentors. Let me explain how this works. In 2015, when Ryan Kaji was 3 years old, his parents created the Ryan Toys Review YouTube channel to upload videos of Ryan opening and playing with toys. In less than a year, Ryan's channel was one of YouTube's top kids channels. Ryan now has 9 YouTube channels, 34.8 million subscribers, and a net worth exceeding $100 million, all at the ripe old age of 11. I was able to apply this principle once I understood that my passion is in building businesses. I've launched businesses that range from industries as diverse as information technology, sports and entertainment, transportation, clothing, electronics, asset recovery, and food and beverages. I've learned to succeed by always partnering with an expert in the industry I invest in. This gives me the advantage of having a resident expert who can help me navigate through all the obstacles unique to whatever industry my business is in. The second thing all successful entrepreneurs do is laser focus on serving a niche target market they can dominate. They don't try to be everything to everybody because they understand that every customer isn't a good customer. They also understand that when your name becomes synonymous with the product or service you provide, expanding your customer base becomes infinitely easier. So let me explain how this works. You know Palo Alto Delivery by its new name, DoorDash. 10-year-old DoorDash is now responsible for over 60% of all food delivery orders in the United States, delivering to 32 million users with annual revenues of $6.6 billion in 2022. This company was started by a couple Stanford University students who were trying to get food delivered to their dorm. Here's how I applied this principle. When I launched my information technology firm in 2007, I laser focused on only serving prospective customers within a 5-mile radius of my office. This ensured my technicians could get to a customer in less than 10 minutes whenever we got a service call. We became so dominant, people assumed we were significantly larger than we were, which made it easier to expand our service market. third thing all successful entrepreneurs do is identify and target prospective customers who believe what they believe. Then they build lifelong relationships with these customers, transforming them into evangelists for their brand, who influence the next group of prospective customers to join the community they've built. What they understand is that people listen to their peers without the distrust that they have for salespeople. So let me explain how this works. Buffalo Exchange is a used clothing resale business that was launched 49 years ago with a mission to provide bargain hunters with carefully curated clothing in a boutique-like setting, with everything priced at $3.50 or less. Today, the business has expanded to 45 stores with annual revenues exceeding $178 million in 2021. So here's how I implemented this principle. Shortly after launching my IT firm, I decided to join the local Chamber of Commerce. On my first visit to the chamber, someone at the chamber told me their computer server had crashed, and their tech support vendor told them they couldn't get out to assess the problem for 3 to 4 days. So I got on the phone and called one of my techs and asked them to drive to the chamber and fix the problem for free. When I told the chamber, based on the conversation I had with my tech, that their server was dying and needed to be replaced, the chamber gave me the order for the new server. In the interim, I lent them a spare server for free. And as a result, not only did the chamber become a loyal customer for the 6-year life of my business, they also referred a minimum 10 additional clients to me before I sold the business. The fourth thing all successful entrepreneurs do is form unconventional strategic alliances with larger complementers, suppliers, customers, and competitors to obtain pre-qualified leads. With a pre-qualified lead, all they now must do is close the sale, deliver the product or service, and then split the revenues with their strategic alliance partner. So let me explain how this works. Bonnie Bell is a cosmetics business that introduced a product called Lip Smackers, the first flavored lip gloss for teenage girls in 1973. To inspire new flavors, they partnered with brands like Dr. Pepper, Starburst, Skittles, Coca-Cola, and Disney. Lip Smackers' sales exceeded $100 million by 2001 and was sold for an undisclosed amount in 2015. So here's my personal example with this principle. A couple months after launching my business, I decided to respond to an RFP to provide tech support to the 5th largest school district in the country. Unfortunately, I didn't qualify to be a prime vendor on this contract, so I asked Dell Computer if they'd consider partnering with me on the response to the RFP. It took some convincing, but Dell eventually agreed to partner, and we won the 5-year, $12.5 million contract. The fifth thing all successful entrepreneurs do is monitor and measure the forward-looking activities that lead to sales, not just the sales themselves. They understand that you can't change the past, but you can course correct to alter your future. By reverse engineering as little as one sale, you can uncover the blueprint to achieving future sales. Here's how you apply this principle. Let's assume your sales process starts with 64 initial contacts with prospective customers, like sending them an email. You follow up these 64 emails with phone calls, which leads to 32 qualified leads. You follow up with phone calls to your 32 qualified leads, which generates 16 appointments to develop a solution for an identified prospective customer problem. After follow-up phone calls from the 16 appointments to discuss your proposed solution, 8 prospective customers request a formal proposal. After the 8 prospective customers receive their proposals, 4 of them ask you to make formal presentations of your proposal. Of the 4 presentations you make, 2 prospective customers ask to receive contracts. And of the 2 contracts you present to prospective customers, 1 leads to a sale. Now let's assume your goal for the upcoming month is to make 10 sales. You can multiply each of your steps to a sale by 10, then divide them by the number of work days in the month to determine what you have to do each day of the month to stay on track to achieve your goal. If it took 64 emails to make 1 sale and you wanted to make 10 sales, you'd need to send out 640 emails this month. Assuming there are 20 work days this month, You divide 640 emails by 20 workdays, which would mean you'd have to send out 32 emails per day. Now, based on prior history, you'd expect the 32 emails sent out on day one would lead to 16 qualified leads on day two. If you received less than 16 qualified leads on day two, you'd adjust the number of emails you'd send out on day two to compensate for the gap in expected qualified leads. By making these types of daily course corrections, you're assured of regularly meeting or exceeding your sales goals. The sixth and final thing all successful entrepreneurs do is surround themselves with an A team to maximize the probability of achieving their business vision. There's a saying that an A team can figure out how to win with a losing hand, but a C team will figure out how to lose with a winning hand. Let me give you an example of how to assemble an A team. Let's say you were given 15 points to spend to build a roster of all-stars to win the NBA championship this season, and you'd get fired if your team didn't win the championship. What 5 players would you choose to be on your team? Now, knowing your job's on the line, I'm guessing some of your favorite players actually might not make your team. And this is the level of unemotional discipline required when surrounding yourself with co-founders, executive leaders, management, staff, advisors, and your board. So here's how I apply this principle with my IT firm. When I launched my IT firm, I had no money to hire employees. So I had to become proficient at dealing with marketing, customer service, sales, accounting, finance, administration, management, operations, information technology, purchasing, and legal issues. Until I could afford employees, my solution was to get answers to questions by leveraging the expertise of fellow members of my local Chamber of Commerce and other business networking organizations. So I started by mentioning Warren Buffett's advice that the best way to be successful is to do what successful people do. So if your goal is to build a successful business, why reinvent the wheel? Why wouldn't you follow the path already laid out by other successful entrepreneurs? Imagine if the following existed for your business. Your business is built around your passion. You're the dominant provider of products or services to your target market. You've cultivated a loyal customer base who buy everything you sell for the duration of your business and refer you to all of their peers. You form strategic alliance partnerships with at least one complementer, supplier, customer, and competitor, and your partners continually feed you with pre-qualified leads. You measure and monitor the forward-looking metrics that lead to sales, thus ensuring you always meet or exceed your sales goals. And you've assembled an A team of co-founders, executive leaders, management, staff, advisors, and board members who give you the greatest chance of successfully realizing your vision. How much easier do you think it would be to achieve entrepreneurial success? So if you're serious about building a successful business, you need to enroll in the first cohort of Entrepreneur University in Lineup. A link to enroll has been put in the chat. Registration will be open later this week for the next Entrepreneur University event, which will be held on Monday, June 12th from 7 to 8 p.m. During this event, we'll discuss why Entrepreneur University is so desperately needed today and why we decided to launch this initiative in the Black Entrepreneurs Group. Thank you for letting me share some of my knowledge tonight. I look forward to helping each and every one of you reach your goals for success in 2023. With the time we have left tonight, I'd like to open the floor and answer any questions you have. So please raise your hand if you have a question.
You know, Jeffrey, I want to say that without even having attended your Entrepreneur University, I have put some of these points in place, and I tell you, it's been successful. From 2020 to actually from 2019 to 2020, we exponentially doubled our revenue based on the contracts that we have. And we've gone, when I first started out, before putting any of these things in place, I remember it was a side gig for me. $30,000 is all I was making a year. And that's when I started in 2005. By 2016, I started implementing some of those things, and we have increased the revenue to close to $1 million next year when our current current contract ends, it will be over $1 million because we'll be taking on more contracts in the
Okay.
state.
Yeah, yeah.
It works.
Yeah, yeah, this stuff absolutely works. You know, people will tell entrepreneurs all the time, hey, you know, because they told me when I have my IT firm, you either can't do this or you shouldn't be able to do this. And my response is always, why? Why not? You know,
Exactly.
you definitely can't achieve it if you don't try it. So I always try, you know, and this is why I call my, you know, what I do, think big. I don't place limits on what I can do. I don't, you know, the sky's the limit for me. I'm going to try anything to build my business. You know, when I have a business, and you know, I don't benchmark against other companies or anything. I just, you know, whatever my mind can conceive, I'm going to try to go after it.
And so I want to ask the first question, because some of you might have that question, is how do we structure our business to start that process? Because many people are gig workers, or they're independent contractors, and you know, they don't know how do I scale my business? And it starts with that first structure of your business. So how do you structure a business to become a $1 million company?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing you need to do, I mean, there's some obvious, you know, starts. I actually have a checklist that I provide people that gives them, it's probably about 25 elements. They're just very essential things that you absolutely have to do to just start a company, right? So I have that list, and you know, some of the things will vary by state, you know, but there, you know, you have to, you know, register an employer identification number. You know, you have to incorporate, you have to decide what legal entity you're, you know, are you going to be a C Corp? Are you going to be an S Corp? Are you going to be, you know, LLC, so on and so forth. So there's that list of things, and I have that. I could provide that to anybody in the group. I also have a checklist on my website that anyone can download that all of these 6 concepts that I talked about. This is kind of, I call it the recipe for success. So that's all free on my website. They can go and you know, if they weren't able to take notes as quick as I spoke, and I don't speak fast, but you know, they can go to the website and download the 6 things that I talked about tonight. I also have, you know, I have an online course because entrepreneurs have asked me, you know, how do I do this stuff? And so I call the checklist the recipe, but the course is me getting in the kitchen cooking with you, you know, because, you know, having the recipe is good, but you'll never be able to do it to the level that I do it unless I'm initially working with you. And then you've got to do this stuff over time. A lot of this stuff is just repetition over time. And, you know, over time, you may get as good as me. You actually may get much better than me, you know, but it's all about, you know, there's a science to everything, but the best and most successful entrepreneurs figure out how to elevate the science into an art form, right? So I was able to figure out how to do that. And I like showing other people how to do that because there's tons of opportunity in the world. We all can win, you know. So for me, it's I know a lot of people that do what I do don't like to share their knowledge, you know, and I understand why they do that. It forces you to come back to them and pay them lots of money. I don't come from that train of thought. I'll willingly tell anyone anything I know. And I get told constantly I'm telling too much and giving away too much, but I also tell people I've been reading 90 pages a day since I was, you know, probably 10 years old. So there's so much in my brain that what I could tell you in 90 minutes is such an infinitesimally small percentage of what's in my brain. I don't really care what I'm telling you. So if you ask me something, I'm going to tell you everything that I can tell you based on my experience, and you know, and if I can help you avoid you know, all the pitfalls and obstacles that I've run into, I want to do that.
Hey Jeff, we have some questions in the chat.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah, Roosevelt had a question about your experience with the chamber. Roosevelt, if
Yeah.
you want to come off mute and ask that question.
Sure. Hey, thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. I looked at the meeting. I said, man, let me go check them out and see what's going on here. I never really thought about using the chamber as an asset. What made you make that choice to use the chambers as an asset to you to gain leads? Because some cities do not have a strong chamber.
Yeah, so
Go ahead. I got you, Jeff. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So this actually was a weird circumstance. There's a story behind that. So I launched my IT company in February of 2007, actually February 1st. And I was looking for, I knew that, hey, in order to get business, people needed to know we existed. So I did a Google search of, organizations, entrepreneurial organizations and events that I could attend. And I found this procurement conference. And again, I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I found out about a procurement conference in Atlantic City. And so I decided, I registered for this event. I go to Atlantic City, and it's a regular procurement conference, but the African American Chamber of Commerce in Philadelphia, for whatever reason, decides to exhibit at this conference. And it wasn't an ethnic centric procurement event. So there aren't many people in the room that look like us when I'm in this convention center, and I'm noticing that no one's going up to their booth, right? And the person that's working the booth is just looking, really bored. So I just went out of my way. I went up and introduced myself, and she said, "Oh, have you joined the chamber?" And I'm like, my business is 2 weeks old. I haven't done much of anything, And but based on that, I joined the chamber. I think it was like $250 or something for the year, and so kind of fast forward, because I had really forgotten I had even signed up to join the chamber. But I was in downtown Philadelphia, and I was actually working with, I had a customer visit, and I had finished early, and I'm in the vicinity of the chamber office. So I just said, hey, let me stop in on the chamber and see what they're doing. And I go in, and I saw the person, her name was Lynn. I saw Lynn was at the front desk. So, she greeted me, and, we just start talking. And while I'm talking to her, I keep hearing alarm bells in the background. And so I'm like, Lynn, what is that? And she said, oh, our server crashed. And so I'm like, well, it's probably more important that you deal with that than talk to me. And she's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. She's like, we called our tech vendor, and they can't get out here for like 3 or 4 days to assess the problem. And I'm like, who in the world are you using for tech support? Well, come to find out, I did some research. I found out this guy worked for a tech company, and he moonlighted, had his own business on the side. So he could only visit his customers. The chamber was one of his moonlighting customers, and he could only get there after hours or on the weekend, which is why he couldn't get out there for 3 to 4 days. So I just felt bad. They weren't my customer. And that's where, when, like I said, I just got on the phone and called one of my techs and said, hey, come down here right away, and let's see if you can fix this problem. And he was able to fix their server. But when he opened the server up, and I'm just relaying what he told me because I'm not tech. He said it actually wasn't even a server. It was a desktop reconfigured to act like a server. And it was built with all the used parts. And the newest part he could find in the computer was 20 years old. So he said, basically, this thing is dying, and I've got it working again, but it's going to keep crashing, and eventually it's going to die, and you're not going to be able to do what I did to revive it. So he said they need a new server. And so I already told this story, but, I basically, they wanted to place the order with me, which they did. We gave them a spare server for free until their server, because servers are built from scratch. They're usually not built in this country. and they usually take about a week to get. So we gave them a server for free. By the time we went back to pick up the new server, they take our old server back, they were like, we fired our old IT firm, you're our new IT firm, right? And so in terms of answering your question, what ended up happening was I would go to chamber events, and I kid you not, if I walked into a chamber event and I saw, and the second Lynn saw me hit the door, if she was talking to a group of people, she'd stop her conversation, run to the door, hug and kiss me, grab my hand and drag me back to whoever she was talking to, literally sell my business for me. She was like, Jeff, hey, Jeff, this is the guy I've been talking to you about. He's with Cognos IT. They're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You need to do business with them. I was like, and then by the time that person called me, all they wanted was a contract from me. I didn't need to tell them anything. They knew everything they needed to know because they had talked to Lynn. Lynn told them what she was paying for my services, what we were doing, what problems she had before I started working with her, how I resolved the problems, how it benefited her business. I didn't have to do any of that discussion, right? So, it wasn't that I necessarily went out of my way to use them as a referral source. It's just because of how we treated them as a customer. They went out of their way to help us do business. And so Lynn was just constantly, Jeff, give this person a call. I've talked to them about your company. They want a contract. Okay, Lynn, no problem. And I really, like I said, I'm so immersed in, my company, we on average doubled our revenues every single year we were in business, right? So I'm so immersed in building this company that I'm not paying attention to how many customers she's actually referring to me. But when I sold the company 6 years later and I looked at the client list, at least 10 of the customers she had referred to me. I mean, the other thing was, and this was again, just based on, the concept of turning customers into evangelists.
Mhm.
I had hundreds of customers. Every single customer I had, I could tell you what other customer referred me to that customer. In 6 years, I never hired a salesperson. I didn't have to.
Mhm.
My customers sold for me.
Hey, Jeff, we got another question in the chat. Joanne's asking, as an independent CPA/notary, what is the best approach to grow business?
There's a couple things you can do, and it's some of the stuff I've talked about in the presentation. So the first thing I would do is laser focus on serving a niche target market that you can dominate, right? And it's counterintuitive, right? Because when you, and this is why I hate how entrepreneurship is taught. When you're learning entrepreneurship in school, the overriding theme of how you should grow businesses, find a multi-billion-dollar market. And then all you need to do is capture 1% of the market and you'll have a multi-million-dollar business. That's the easiest way to fail, right? You can learn everything you need to know to scale a business literally from one customer. Because once you get a customer, camp out at their office and just keep asking them questions. Why did you give me a contract? Why are you doing business with me? Why do you keep doing business with me? Why do you order all the stuff you order? How are you using what I'm selling you? How is it impacting your business? They're going to give you everything you need to know to find other customers. And like I said, when the name of your company becomes synonymous with what you do,
Mhm.
it is so much easier to sell. Because, when any of us when you're approached by a salesperson, you don't trust them because you don't know why they're approaching you. There's one of two reasons why salespeople approach people. One, well, obviously they're trying to make a sale, but they have one of two motivations. One is they've taken the time to understand who you are, what your needs are, what your pain points are, and they've aligned a product or service in their bag of tricks that they know ideally solves your pain point, that's going to be a really remote case, trust me. Or second motive is they're being, disproportionately compensated to sell you something. And so they're pitching something you probably don't need, but they're going to make a lot of money if they sell it to you. And that's why they're pushing it on you. You, of course, as a consumer, know this, which is why we don't trust, human beings don't trust salespeople. This is why I don't hire salespeople, right? Who you do trust are, your peers. This is why, I always give people the example. If you have a daughter and she's in Girl Scouts and she's selling Girl Scout cookies, who's the first person she's going to try to sell cookies to? Her parents. Why? Because she has a relationship with them. And it's hard for parents to say no to their child, right? So you need to replicate that. When you have customers, you need to create that familial relationship with them so that they buy everything you sell for as long as you're in business, and they refer you to everyone they know, all their peers, so that when someone comes to you, versus you having to go to them, they've already heard all the, they know the story. They know why they're coming to you in the first place. They've heard from someone they actually trust why they should do business with you. And now all you literally need to do is hand them a contract. You can talk yourself out of a sale if you talk too much, right?
Another question, Jeff, from Mansoor. Says, I've just started creating online courses. I'm completely lost how to market my courses and where to market them. The courses are all business oriented, like how to grow your business, how to build an email list from scratch, how AI is impacting businesses. Says, we're just about in recession. I'm preparing a course that I plan to launch in early July. Title of the course is The Lazy Man's Way to Find Out How to Generate Income During the Recession.
Yeah. So, and this is part of the previous answer that I didn't get to. I mean, the other thing I would do is I mentioned this in the presentation, is forming partnerships, right? So I actually had this conversation with someone earlier today. It's like, large businesses love to do business with small businesses, right? So if you know someone that works in a Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company, that was there since the company started, ask them when they had the most fun working in their company. I guarantee you they'll tell you when it first started. When there was no bureaucracy, there weren't all the people, so when they were first starting, had no money, everyone ate lunch together, went to dinner together. You knew all their, everyone knew everyone's kids, knew everyone's spouses, everyone made decisions together. You all got in the conference room and made decisions together. You did everything together. That's when things are fun. You don't have any money, but that's when things are fun. When you start hiring people and bureaucracy kicks in, unless you like working in that environment, and that would mean you're not an entrepreneur, you're not going to find that fun, right? I mean, the objective obviously is to grow big, but this is also why you want to grow to an exit, because when it gets big, you're not going to enjoy yourself, right? So, but large organizations like to partner with small businesses because you're nimble. You don't have to ask people permission to do anything, So a large organization has a lot of money. They can invest a lot of money in marketing and promotion. So they get leads all the time. But in order for them to react to a lead when they get it, they have to ask 10 people permission, right? In management. I used this example of, how I partnered with Dell. I'm like, my partner with Dell, if he looked out the window and saw a $100 bill on the ground, in order for him to get up from his desk and go outside and pick up that bill, he'd have to ask 10 managers if he could leave his desk. It was easier for him to give me a call and say, Jeff, there's a $100 bill outside my window. If you come over here and get it and bring it to my desk, I'll give you $10. It's the easiest $10 I ever got. And it's the easiest 90 he ever got, because he saw it, but he didn't have to do any work to get it. I didn't see it. It was given to me as a pre-qualified lead. All I had to do was walk across the street, but I didn't have to do any marketing to find the opportunity, right? So the thing I would do is look at, and this comes from a concept called the value net. It's in a book called Co-opetition. It was written by two professors, one from Harvard and one from Yale. And so the concept is you enhance your value to customers you serve when you start to form strategic alliance partnerships with much larger organizations in 4 distinct quadrants. Companies that have products that complement yours,
Mhm.
your suppliers, your customers, and actually your competitors. I mentioned when I had my IT firm, I partnered with Dell. So when we won the School District of Philadelphia contract, School District of Philadelphia has like 10,000 employees. I had literally at that time, I probably had 5 techs working for me. There's no way in the world I could manage that contract, but I pursued it anyway. When I actually got the RFP, when I read the RFP, it said you have to manufacture computer hardware to be able to bid. So I was disqualified. So I knew that, there are a limited number of companies that make computers. Fortunately, we bought all of our servers because I provided cloud computing services. So we bought all our servers from Dell. So for me, it was, okay, well, I have a relationship with Dell. Let me reach out to my contact to see if they'll do business with me. So I reached out to Dell and said, hey, there's an RFP, the School District of Philadelphia. I had met the superintendent of the school district. I had met the chief information officer. I had met the chief financial officer and the chief operating officer of the school district. So based on those conversations, I knew that Gateway had the contract. They weren't happy. They weren't going to renew the contract with Gateway. So they were going to pick a new vendor. So this is where sometimes it helps to be arrogant as an entrepreneur. I went to Dell and said, hey, this opportunity is about to hit the street. I'd like to bid with you on it. The response I got was, well, we already have multiple minority-owned businesses that we do business with in Philadelphia. My arrogant response was, that's fine, but whoever does business with me is the one who's going to win the contract. and Dell's response was, who the hell is this guy? So about a week later, I get a call from Dell, and he said, we need answers to questions before we decide whether or not we're going to bid with you. And so they asked me to get answers to a couple questions that you would only know if you were the chief information officer at the school district. So I called up the CIO, told her what the questions were. She gave me the answers. I gave them to Dell. And Dell immediately knew I knew someone in the school district, probably a lot higher than they did.
Jeffrey,
So,
sorry, but I want to
yeah.
keep you on track. I want to keep you, it's 4:48, and I want to
Okay.
ensure that we have time for people to answer. And to Mansoor's question, I'm in that space. And so if you want to reach out to me, what I did is just what Jeffrey said, is connecting, but with people within that space on RFPs that I wasn't able to fulfill, but they were. And so as a subcontractor, you're able to do that and build your, not just build your network, but also build your capabilities. So we're going to go on to the next question. Sorry, Jeffrey, but I want to make sure that
No
many
problem.
people, I
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
facilitate it.
Yeah, we got another question from Isimus, says, will your strategy work for international businesses based in Africa or the UK?
It'll work anywhere. I mean, yeah, I mean, business is business, people are people. It doesn't matter where you are. And I say that I'm a military brat. My dad was a colonel in the Air Force. I've lived on 4 continents, 10 of the 50 US states. So I've been, I've lived in Asia, I've lived in the Middle East, I've lived in Europe. I've met a lot of people, been exposed to a lot of cultures. People are people. I don't care where you go. People do business the same way, no matter where you're at. This stuff works. There's a reason why, successful people repeat the same things. You read enough books, about successful entrepreneurs, and trust me, it's like you're reading the same book over and over and over again. They all say the same things and credit the same reasons why they succeed. And I'd love to argue with anyone who says this stuff doesn't work. I mean, it's concept one, build a business around, figure out what you're passionate about and build your business around your passion. Where wouldn't that work?
Do we have 10 minutes?
What was the name of that book again? Zachary wants to know. The book you had mentioned.
Co-opetition.
And you're not going to know or learn everything today, but we plan to be here. Jeffrey is going to be here. Victor is going to be here. So that, and from time to time, we may have a panel of people, experts in different area. The goal here is so that you can learn. Reach out to Jeffrey, reach out to myself, Victor, if you have any questions that are not answered today on this platform. We're here.
Yeah, and I actually, to that last question, the next session that we have, I'm really going to share my vision for why, again, I think Entrepreneur University on Lineable is so critically important today. I was asked a question by a friend at least a decade ago of, when you die, what do you want your legacy to be? And I'll fast forward because I'll probably tell that the next session. But I have 2 daughters, and my goal now is to use my God-given talents to make the world a better place for them and their generation, right? And so I was put on earth to be an entrepreneur. It took me till I was 49 to realize that, but I now know that, right? So, and the more reading I did about problems that bothered me that I know could potentially impact my daughters, particularly poverty, unemployment, crime, all of these issues can be resolved by literally 1% of the entrepreneurial population. And at the next session, I'll tell you how exactly that can be done.
Fantastic. And now all the courses on Alignable are free. This is for the membership. Jeffrey Kent has his own consulting business, and you can contact him if you want further information or you need help doing that.
Dr. Nolan, we have another question from Juanita, asking, can you tell a little about the course, how long, the cost, etc.?
Yeah, so the course it's self-paced, it's online. I call it a 7-week course. Let me break it down. There are 28 modules. So 1 week has 2 modules. Some weeks have 5 modules. So on average, there are 4 modules per week. It's basically PowerPoint. I narrate PowerPoint slides for the course. So you could listen to a module. You could go through a module in probably 30 minutes in terms of watching the slides, listening to what I'm trying to teach you. But then I also, as you go along, there are, to help you understand what I'm teaching, I might refer you to specific websites. I actually will have you read case studies. I'll have you do a lot of exercises. Each week, I actually, have you do a challenge. And at the end of the day, when you complete the course, you will build, I call a fundable business plan, right? So I always tell people that they're like, well, should I write my own business plan? The answer is yes, because you're going to have to defend it when you go to try to get funding, not whoever wrote it for you. And then secondly, I tell them, even if you were to hire someone to help you write your business plan, at the end of the day, the business plans are written for 2 reasons: 1, to operate a business; 2, to get funding. But most business plans are written to get funding. If you hire someone to help you write a business plan or write your business plan to get funding and it doesn't get funding, it's not worth the paper it's written on. So, if you're ever looking to have someone write your business plan, the first question you should ask is, how many business plans have you written that have gotten funding? And if they say 0, turn around and run, right? So that the course is, like I said, 7 weeks. It's $275 per year, so it renews automatically. You can cancel at any given point in time. So what you get for that $275 a year is the course, access to all the content I create, access to my time, access to my network and access to other people that have taken, that either are taking or have taken the course.
So Jeffrey, I just want to be clear for our membership on Alignable. Any presentation we do on Alignable itself is free. So when it comes to Entrepreneur University, when you come to these events on Alignable, that is free.
Yes, yes. So Entrepreneur University is free. I thought the question was about my course, which everybody sees behind me. So I apologize.
That's different, but I
was
want to make
mistaken.
sure that the membership knows that you guys have access on Alignable. What Jeffrey does in his business is separate from Alignable. It's not connected to Alignable. Alignable, we just want to provide resources for you and people who have knowledge, especially of business ventures, of growing, scaling your business. We want to provide those tools for you on Alignable, and those will be free. So we have a couple of minutes to close down. We will be closing right at 5 o'clock. Everybody has stuff to do. I want to thank you, Jeffrey, for coming on. Thank you, Victor, for arranging this. And any questions, please connect with Jeffrey. You can connect with Victor. You can ask questions offline. We will be doing other events. Those will be free so that you can learn. But it doesn't end here. Please connect with them and you can get more information regarding what Jeffrey just shared. I know that works. It worked for me. Maybe not all 6, main points, but I tell you what, the majority of the ones that Jeffrey talked about, they do work. So any one other question, and then we will be seeing you at the next event. I see Roosevelt, your hands up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and unmute.
Great job, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic.
I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from you in this short session. And I'm an entrepreneur already, so it's always get some great key points and how everything works out. In business, it's pretty simple. So I'm like, wow. I want a quick question. Did you use both of the chambers or only one?
I use multiple chambers.
Okay.
So might want to mute real quick.
I got it.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually joined multiple chambers. Initially, as I said, I was trying to find organizations that would help me grow my business. So we joined probably like 4 or 5 different chambers. But I got better as we went along at figuring out, once I started going to a couple events in each chamber, looking, kind of surveying the room and saying, okay, is this chamber going to get me in front of my ideal customer, yes or no? And if the answer was no, then I resigned from that chamber. But yeah, we ended up working with so the African American Chamber in Philadelphia, which is actually a really small chamber, but they were just so passionate about working with us, right? And then the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Philadelphia is a huge chamber. It's the largest chamber in Philly, and it's actually substantially different from every other chamber in the region in that they actually have multiple levels of membership. So even though I couldn't afford it, joined at the highest level immediately. They put me on the board, and then that actually got me in the room with CEOs of all the largest corporations in Philly on day one. And so I was able to leverage that particular chamber as well to get a lot of business. But so those were the 2 that primarily over time I stayed with. But in the beginning, I probably joined 4 or 5 different chambers.
Great. Well, thank you guys for attending.
Good night.
The next session is already posted. Felix, Victor has posted the session in the chat. So please attend. We will be posting that in the Black-owned business on the forum so that you can register just like you registered for this one. I thank you again for attending. Jeffrey, thank you for such great information. And Victor also for helping organize. We hope to see you again at the next one. I believe it's on the 12th of June. So we
Yep.
hope to see you. And we're going to be having these. We have all kinds of events on the Black-owned business. We have Smart Connects. Please join us, learn, and connect. Jeffrey, any last minute, anything you'd like to say before we just close out?
Again, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to the group. You know, I think this is, I've tried to attend as many Black entrepreneur group sessions as possible over the last couple of weeks. I've met some really fantastic people. I think I know, you know, a small percentage of the people in the room that I've connected with through some of these other events. So I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to the group. What you're doing, the fact that you started this group, the fact that you're so passionate about helping, you know, or at least wanting to help everyone in the group scale so that everyone can win, I think is admirable. I feel the same way. So yeah, I want to support you in any way I can.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Anybody have one last question? If you do, please connect with Jeffrey. You can ask him, send him a message after you've connected, but join us again. If you want to know more, you have to join us. Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.